welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Presidency clarifies visit of 7 governors to London as Governor of Imo State, Rochas Okorocha, refutes claims of President Buhari being on life support. Senate moves to strip EFCC of control over Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, begins debate on review of 1999 Constitution. At least 1 dead and many feared trapped as 4-story building collapses in Lagos Island. Operators by rescue agencies going on at the scene. And hope rises for return of peace to war-torn Libya as rival groups agree to ceasefire.
On business news tonight, the Securities and Exchange Commission issues a deadline for all market institutions to show proof of compliance with the new tax amnesty program.
While on sports news, the league management company recommends the withdrawal of 6 match officials from the Nigeria Professional Football League for poor performance.
And from Abuja, the federal government unveils a 2-year plan for the development of the Niger Delta region.
We begin tonight with a list of 7 governors drawn up by the Nigerian Governors Forum from the 6 geopolitical zones to pay President Muhammadu Buhari a visit in London. Now that's according to the presidential spokesman Garba Shehu, who told State House correspondents that the governors are those of Zamfara State, who leads the team, Ebonyi, Oyo, Kano, Borno, Benue and Akwa Ibom. According to him, the governors from both PDP and the APC would leave the country tonight ahead of a scheduled meeting with the president at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, July the 26th, 2017. Our correspondent Gloria Umezoke reports.
When the photograph of some leaders and APC governors who visited President Muhammadu Buhari in London on the 23rd of July 2017 surfaced online, it surprised many, drawing mixed reactions. A few days after, the Nigerian Governors Forum draws up a list of governors who will be paying the president a visit, this time officially.
The governors of
presidential spokespersons who listed the names of the governors selected from the 6 geopolitical zones told State House correspondents that the visit is born out of goodwill.
I believe that Nigerians in various positions had yearned, to go meet the president, and at some point this obviously had not been permitted. But given the changed circumstances, you can see that it's coming from London itself, and that the president is welcoming. So let's leave it at that. It's a goodwill visit, and we all do that. As a cultural people, we visit people who leave hospital or suffer this thing or that thing. And I'm sure that the president himself will be very delighted to see people coming from the 6 geopolitical zones, coming to convey the goodwill of Nigerians to people.
Presidential spokesman Femi Adesina confirms that only President Buhari's personal photographer will accompany the team, although he emphasized that the president is doing well, but the date of his return remains at the discretion of his doctors.
That already is in the public domain. He will return when the doctors certify. It's in the letter he wrote to the AU chairman, which was made public this afternoon, also contains that one. He said he was just waiting for his doctors to tell him all was well, and then he will return home.
President Muhammadu Buhari, whose real medical condition remains unknown, has been in London for approximately 70 days for medical treatment, and from all indications might be expected back sooner than later. Gloria Umezoke, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Governors Forum, Governor Rochas Okorocha, has confirmed that the president's health is improving. The Imo State governor also refuted stories making the rounds that the president has been on life support. He says President Buhari is only waiting for the certification of his doctors and will return to the country any time from now. Governor Okorocha was speaking on Channels Television's Politics Today.
Left Nigeria. There were a lot of issues situation that Mr. President was on life support coming from different quarters and different angles, and people insinuating that he's dead and all that. And that left most Nigerians confused, except for the fact that his able acting president came and reassured Nigerians that he's in good spirit. But even then, most people didn't believe it. But to my greatest shock, when I arrived in London and with the party chairman, Governor Kaduna, Governor Kogi Nasarawa, and the Minister of Transport, we saw a man that was full of humor as usual, and you were wondering what they're talking about. All I can say is that Mr. President is in good health, and he's not in life support, and will soon be back. And he's not in the hospital. I was thinking I was going to see him in the hospital. He wasn't even in the hospital. He was at home, relaxing, having a good time. But I think the doctors must have insisted that he should take a bit of more rest. And when I made inquiry as to why is he still waiting, why is he not back home, and all I get as an answer was that he's just taking some vitamins to increase his appetite, to regain his lost weight where possible. But the man is in good spirit, and I think the prayers of Nigerians have worked to a great extent, and President Buhari is coming back in full force to resume his work. What Nigerians should be talking about now is what will be his next plan of action. What are you expecting when he arrives? But definitely, I'm sure he will come back, definitely.
Imo State Governor and Chairman of the Governors Forum, Rochas Okorocha. Meanwhile, the President has written to thank his Guinean counterpart, Alpha Condé, for the nationwide prayers held last week for his recovery and good health. A letter dated July the 24th, 2017, quoted President Muhammadu Buhari as saying, "I thank you for your kind and thoughtful action in organizing nationwide prayers for my good health. It's a gesture that I will forever cherish and treasure. Your Excellency will be pleased to hear that I'm making good progress, and as soon as doctors advise, I shall return to my duties and continue serving the Nigerian people who elected me and are daily praying for my recovery." End of quote. Earlier, President Buhari had accepted to lead the 2018 AU theme on the fight against corruption. He was nominated by African leaders at the 29th session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Governments of the AU in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. President Buhari reiterated his commitment to help strengthen good governance and development in Africa. A bill seeking to establish the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Agency today scaled second reading in the Senate. The bill has now been referred to the Committee on Anti-Corruption and Financial Crimes for further action after it was initiated for first reading last Thursday. The successful passage of the bill will strip the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission of control over the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, which is currently under the Anti-Graft Agency. The proposed agency, after the passage, will serve as the central body responsible for receiving, requesting, analyzing and disseminating financial intelligence reports and other information to law enforcement and other relevant authorities in Nigeria.
The fact that in the past few years, EFCC has continued to unilaterally remove the heads of the NFIU is a clear indication that it is not autonomous. B, the need for high-level confidentiality in the conduct of NFIU cannot be guaranteed as is currently constituted. E, inadequate funding is hindering the implementation of the core functions of the NFIU, as no separate budgetary provisions have been made for it in the EFCC budget. Even the effort we made, the EFCC refused to follow up on that because they don't want the independence of this body. 13. In practical terms, the question is whether Nigeria really has a financial intelligence unit. Strictly speaking, we do not have a FIU, as what is currently in existence is an EFCC department, glorified as FIU. 14. It is important to point out that the reason why FATF prescribes for an independent FIU is to maintain checks and balances and prevent the manipulation of financial intelligence. For Nigeria to meet the standards of FATF and Egmont, the NFIA must have the following powers as set out in the bill. A. Powers to receive disclosures from reporting entities such as banks, capital market operators, insurance companies, and the broad exchange. Relating to suspicious transactions and other reports such as currency transaction reports and custom declarations.
The recent phase in the amendment of the Constitution appears to be running into troubled waters as some federal lawmakers are not on board with some of the areas up for amendment. Some of them feel that issues like local government autonomy and 35% affirmative action are very controversial and require further consultations with their constituencies. Our correspondent Linda Akigbe reports.
As early as 10:15 a.m., senators begin trickling into the Senate chamber to vote on the areas up for amendment in the Constitution. But the Senate leadership postpones the vote to the following day to join their colleagues in the House of Representatives, also scheduled to vote on the same day. Senators instead begin a debate on the parts of the Constitution slated for amendment. Some of the key highlights of the amendments are local government autonomy, independent candidacy, setting a time frame within which the President or Governor shall forward to the Senate or State House of Assembly names of ministerial nominees or commissioners and attachment of the portfolios of the nominees. The reduction of the age qualification for the offices of President, Senate and House of Representatives was widely supported.
That when you look at the requirement for age for such offices across the world, the lower house and the provincial house usually is 25. And the argument is, if you are old enough to die for your country, you ought to be old enough to hold office in your country.
However, lawmakers want a second look at the amendments seeking local government autonomy.
Where local government elections are not conducted, allocations will be seized from going to the local governments concerned. So I would suggest that we go further here to say that any state that violates this, the allocation to the state itself should be stopped. Not only the local government, even the allocation to the state should be withdrawn, withheld until the state conducts the compliance with the local government election.
I want to move a motion that we, in the consideration of these amendments, have additional clause and bill to amend the relevant section of the Constitution whereby INEC will conduct local government elections.
Some lawmakers are not on board with the constitutional amendment seeking 35% affirmative action for women. A lawmaker from the Niger Delta voiced his disapproval over the exclusion of fiscal federalism from this phase of constitution amendment.
In the same thing now, if you say 35% must be women, Mr. President, as I'm talking to you today, statistics are showing that women outnumbered men as we are talking today. A day will come, it is just a question of if and not when women will take over in almost all stratas of everything. Then what are we going to do that day, when that day comes? I think the whole of this section is not quite necessary. As we are today, women are very well represented.
Federal lawmakers in both chambers are scheduled to vote on Wednesday, July 26th on the different clauses up for amendment. But it would be interesting to see how this will go down on Wednesday, as some lawmakers are not on board with some parts up for amendment, and what the implication of this would be on the overall process of amending the Constitution. Linda Akigbe, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, Central Bank leaves all key interest rate parameters unchanged. We'll take a look at the implications of this. I'll be joined by the MD CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rawane. That's in a moment. Do stay with us.